Bum.
We are live.
We are live.
Good
We are
afternoon,
live. Good morning.
wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, it's a good point. For you in Los Angeles, good morning. We have an incredible show. Cameron MacDonald on the show. He's done hundreds of reality shows behind the scenes as a cameraman.
And he's completely horrified.
He's completely horrified. What is he horrified about?
I'm just teasing.
We're going to welcome him to a wonderful,
Wonderful
chaos. So this is Cameron MacDonald. Welcome to Cameron. Cameron MacDonald happens to be a cousin of mine.
I know.
Yes.
He
those
was
that
one
don't
of
know.
our first fans.
He was our first fan. Actually, I think he was the one that got us motivated to keep doing it because there's only one person who showed up each day at the start as we shoved the iPad in.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I just did it because we would come together anyway.
Yeah, well, he had a lot of faith. Well, he added great comments. He made it easier for us to do an hour because I think at first when we did an hour, we didn't know if we could really do an hour on a subject, and he kind of peppered us with questions that made it a lot easier. But Cameron has been a cameraman for, I guess, at least 20, 30 years. We'll find out. And in those 20, 30 years, he's always been talking to me about what happens behind the scenes of reality TV shows. And I always thought it was so curious because I was always suspicious. Like, how do they capture all of this crazy shit in this very short time and then make it appear as if, oh, this is just randomly happening?
Yeah.
You know? And then like worse off is that people begin to make the assumption that those people are a certain way. And those people can even go and commit suicide because they're so humiliated on national TV.
Right.
I mean, that's how bad it is. So that made it very interesting for me to get him on so that we could discuss with him, a little bit about what really is going on behind the scenes, and of course other odds and ends that'll clearly be interesting.
Yeah.
You know, he was my first introduction to marijuana, I think, as well. So maybe
Isn't that illegal?
it may, maybe not. We'll see. There he is. Cousin Cameron.
Hey,
What's
Cameron.
going on, guys? Good morning.
Thank you for coming.
What's good on
that-
your side?
The comment, just to address it for a moment, the suicide comment.
Yeah.
You guys remember that show, Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator?
Of course. Yes.
That was pulled from the air because they organized confronting a guy at his job. And they did, and he went home and killed himself because of the exposure and it was so disturbing that production would allow that to happen.
Okay.
It was like this. There was no way to stop that force, except for something like this to explode in their face so bad that because that was a good show. It was exciting.
It was incredible. I mean, and made you sick at the same time.
Oh, at the same time, it had everything, and they had to go and ruin it with their finger poking.
Well, they had
them.
There was a new Netflix series, which I know you haven't watched, Bambos, because you don't watch Netflix series, but there was one that was very curious called TV and the Media, I believe, or something in that, where it was there was a show. I can't remember the woman's name. She was quite famous for having a TV show, say in the 80s, and she welcomed a man on who had a crush on another man, and he revealed that crush on air, and then that guy came back and shot and killed him.
Yes,
yeah.
I do vaguely remember that.
Yeah, and that was, again, this sort of sensationalized TV where they told the guy, basically, there's somebody that has a crush on you. It might be a male or a female. And then they brought them on the show with these two couples, and the guy made the assumption, Jenny Jones, thank you, Maestro 411 is the Jenny Jones show, that was it. And then basically the guy came and killed him a few days later. Yes. And I mean,
it's just terrible, man.
So the one thing that shocked me when we were talking about this, I was utterly surprised when you gave me the indication that there was more scripted than we might be aware of.
Scripted's a tough term, and that was probably more of a shortcut statement than what I really meant. one of the original and ongoing critiques of reality television is that it doesn't really reflect true reality. It's full of artificial situations. Participants are constantly being coached in the direction that, let's just massage it this way or that way. Storylines definitely get generated ahead of time because it's time management, and when you look at the beginning of reality TV, which actually started back in the 50s and 60s with candid camera, this was all film. And it wasn't until the 80s that they were able to introduce the camcorder, where the cinema verite became a signature look to every show after that. And then with the nonlinear editing, which Avid created, suddenly you could take 50, 60, 80 hours of footage and get it down into a 30, 60-minute slot and do that very effectively over and over and over again. So time management really pushed it. One of the drawbacks for me that I dislike is the glamorizing of vulgarity, making unworthy people stars. People
So
are famous.
when you say like unworthy people, are you kind of like, I mean, that's a harsher term, but I guess you're saying people who just are, Joe Schmo from the street. He says, I want to get on TV, not thinking what the consequences are going to be for him or her.
Well, no, I'm saying we are now glamorizing people that have nothing other than a media presence.
Okay.
Like what their achievements don't amount to much other than being in front of a camera and drawing attention. The intent to humiliate and exploit participants in some of these venues is one of the like, if it bleeds, it leads. Let's watch it. I hate it, but I love it. And it started off innocently enough with Beat the Clock. Remember that show? I don't really. I remember seeing it as a kid, but Truth or Consequence, remember that? I mean, these are 50s, 60s things. Dating Game.
Yeah.
Those were all being now categorized as reality. Back then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Candid Camera. The Gong Show. Getting people to expose themselves privately and be exploited with nonsense. I'm going to do something super silly that I wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
Because I might win and then I'm going to be famous.
I have to say that in my brain, I don't remember watching a reality show in my life, but the candid camera, when I was very small. But my question, Cameron, because it sounds like as you're talking, I feel there's an undercurrent which carry your words, which is a bit like, this is shit.
Well, so, you know what? It's funny you say that because I have to be reminded both by myself and people close to me to not editorialize like that because it's not everybody's truth, but currently it's mine. I'm having a tough relationship with it. I did it. Go ahead.
So you're on the set, you're holding a camera. Where are you with yourself while holding the camera? Are you fully there, like thinking, what the hell am I doing here? Or are you just doing your job? Are you still excited to hold the camera? Like, where are you?
Like most people at their jobs, being a DP or cameraman, it's part blue collar, definitely. And then with this element of brain function, that would be considered a white collar aptitude, especially as you climb the ladder to be in control of the camera team versus just being an operator. And with that, there comes all kinds of excitement at the beginning because you're creating and you're experimenting and you're getting feedback, and then the monotony sets in. So just like mowing the lawn or washing your hands, people don't generally think about each blade of grass they're mowing. They're thinking about what they're going to do on Friday night. They're thinking about, so it kind of frees your mind up to just go elsewhere. So doing this for 12 hours, 6 days in a row, your brain kind of compensates and saves you from yourself. Because there are times where it's just, I just emanate cuss words, because
It's like being in a Buddhist monastery, meditating 24/7 and staying in a little room.
And then at the same time, you add in the element of the person in charge saying, yeah, we're going to be done in an hour.
Yeah.
5 hours later, 6 hours later. Yeah, we're almost done. 8 hours later. And so you never really have an idea when this is going to come to an end. And it's very physical, hard work.
I've got a question going to this thing you mentioned earlier about the about things being prepared ahead of time. You said storylines.
Yes.
And how do you see that in real life? Like you're sitting there holding this camera. There's a guy. What would be the name of the guy who's trying to like push people in a certain direction to act a bit weird on the in front of the camera?
Well, you know, I guess I got to give a little bit of background so the answer isn't myopic. It would be, you know, there's different types of moments. You know, there's a show that's been on season 2 or 3. You know, you're on episode 22. That's a lot different than a sizzle or a pilot. You know, technically with a pilot episode, when we go out and shoot something, we're actually shooting 3 or 4 different shows. So we're really condensing a lot of stuff because you don't know what's going to shine in the edit. You know, because everybody's flying by the seat of their pants because you don't know. I mean, you get a case where the sidekick is suddenly the star. You put all this upfront pilot money into this person, and then it's the person over the shoulder that ends up running away with the show. And so elements like that, you kind of have to just be organic and prepared for.
But there was one story you told me specifically that resonated with me for a long time.
Okay, it might be something like this. So let's just say we're at the end of season 1, and it's rich realtors, females, flamboyant, and they're competing with each other. So what production might do, which is the producer that's kind of giving us our direction, they'll say, okay, we're going to take our 2 cast members to the same hair salon, but they're going to pretend they didn't know they both had the same appointment. And they're competing for a very, very lucrative listing. And then they'll say, go. And the people at this point, they know what's expected of them. You know, these 2 fine women might be friends in real life, or the, you know, animosity, it doesn't run that hot and heavy. But for the show, they'll be willing to get a little more catty, a little bit more brassy.
Okay.
You know, and that's the kind of coaching that there are some people that really want it to play out, but that scene could take 12 hours to get the 3 or 4 minutes that they need for the scene. They don't want to pay us overtime and throw a whole day away for that scene. So they'll condense it and be like, okay, guys, we got to get out of here, you know, by 1 o'clock. So you're going to be this way. You're going to be this way. Go make it happen.
Okay. So they'll give that much instruction. Even.
Yeah. Out of necessity, because, you know, these producers are responsible for, you know, if you accumulate too much overtime, you could get fired for your team. The other thing, the flip side of that is, you know, I was on one show called In a Fix, which was a makeover show for a whole house. And we did, I think, 99 episodes of that particular show, and it would take us 3 days to do it. Well, midway through, a new producer came in, and on her first day, handed over 13 tapes for 1 segment, when it should have been 3. So now we spent all that time getting paid overtime or whatnot, shooting, but then to make it worse, all that product's got to go to post and edit.
Yeah.
Now they're going to have to sift through 13 hours instead of 3.
Yeah.
You know, so it just causes a disruption, and, you know, it really comes out of necessity. You know, I don't know if it helps, but the emergence of reality TV as we know it was the result of the writer's strike in 1988. The Writers Guild, there was 100 days it went on. And scripted content just went out the window. 1989, Cops arrived. And that was it, man. They had the first camcorders and you know, that Verte running, you know, we're seeing it all.
Yeah.
So, although
There
just
was,
as a side,
I
go
guess there
ahead.
was one story that you told me that really hit me
Yeah,
hard,
I
and
wish I could remember it.
it was a story where you said that on an occasion you were working on a reality dating TV kind of set scenario show,
Yes, I've done MTV Dating Story.
and basically the producer went to one of the people and said it would be really nice if when he came in you ran up to him and gave him like this really big hug, or you know it was like
Yeah, and that's like I don't know what that doesn't really come back to my mind now. At the time, it might have made a good story, but since
but the,
then, I mean,
but
that's
you
going
told
back years.
But you told me afterwards the woman was trashed because everyone was judging her for this behavior that she was prodded to do. So in some ways, it fascinated me was that like
Oh,
she was
you know
pushed
what?
in this direction. Yeah.
So I don't know if this is a story, and this is not my story, but it is it's an industry story, which makes it partially mine. Um, there's a franchise called The Bachelor.
Yeah.
Then they had The Bachelorette, then Bachelors in Paradise, and then Paradise Island. So these are all shoot offs of the show. On Paradise Island, Miami is such a hotbed for actors, reality TV people. When you see them introduced in the show, you'll be like, "Hey, Alex, real estate agent, waiter, whatever." But they're all want to be actors. Like they're casting for this part.
Mm.
They all hope that the reality is gonna propel them into the other direction, which is television, film, whatever. I mean, all of them. Uh, so, Bachelor and Bachelorette, case in point, probably 4 or 5 times a year, I'll do the background package because the contestant is from Miami. We just get a lot of it. So, which is a day in the life. So it would be basically, if you were my guy, I'd spend the day with you. I'd meet your girlfriend, wife. I'd watch you eat breakfast and get ready for your day. Watch you at work a little bit. Watch you interact with your friends, and then when they introduce you in the show, they'll show bits and pieces of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, a Miami girl, I'll just keep her nameless. Train wreck, really rich family, was casted for the show for Paradise Island, where they all congregate, all these beautiful people on an island and let them go. Drink, 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 eat, see what happens. She got wasted, and one of the other contestants got very, very inappropriate, like legally inappropriate with her in the pool. And production let it go on. And they kept filming. And finally, a female producer said, enough, stop it. They canceled the rest of the season, fired a half a dozen people or more. And I mean, that's just like,
that's trying to create scenarios so that you get steam, so you can sell, sell the sensationalism.
What interesting fact that when we're talking about Paradise Island is, the Dutch is like the modern inventors of this stage setting where they put a certain number of people in an environment for an extended period of time to watch everything implode. It was a show called I only read about it once, but it was in the early 90s, like number 28. Anyway, they were the first.
So the Dutch started the reality TV dating sort of
not
format.
the dating, but the let's put like Big Brother, or let's put them in a room, put them in a thing. Yeah, that style.
Oh, is that right?
Now
you know the Big Brother series, or no?
I know what it means.
Oh, yeah.
MTV claims they got it from the American Family. Remember that? Late 70s, they followed this family around and just documented their lives. And there was like a wedding, an abortion, like all this realness. But everybody knows they took it from the Dutch.
Oh, interesting. You got anything?
No.
Well, I'll take us through the next level.
No, go ahead. What's your next?
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, you've been, how many years have you been doing this now?
I probably got my first reality job in like 96.
96.
And that would be MTV dating stuff.
MTV dating stuff. And when that first came online, like you must have seen it differently then than you do now.
Are you kidding me? I was all that in a bag of chips in '96, man. I couldn't have risen any higher doing that job, man.
MTV was like, I've made it. That was like,
You probably
I've
look like a
arrived,
pimp.
man. You know, and at this point, I'm more tuned to like answer an email or a phone call with, I thought I told you to lose this number.
did you see, like, I mean, when you see it's shifted through the years, because if you started in '96, basically the start, and now we're at 220, like what's the difference you found from then till now, if anything?
That's it.
It feels like it's coming.
Well, you know, I'm trying to get past what it's reminding me of, which is, you know, I got booked quite a bit through this New York agency for almost a decade. That whenever I got BBC, Discovery stuff through Europe, which would be Granada TV, a couple of the other production companies that are big there, we would take a week to do a 30-minute thing. I mean, very thoughtful, very like the money was spent correctly. You know, it really felt like I was doing something that I wanted to be doing. And then America would create the same show or a footprint of it. And what England would do in a week, we would do in 2 days. Wow. And it was sort of like this two-dimensional, very shallow version, which, you know, which put me, and, you know, this is my personal feeling, but I've also reflected it with some peers, is that we're very disposable. You know, so it became less craft and more just come on.
So you'd say basically, from a standpoint of creating the content, as you mentioned earlier, it needs to be faster. So to some degree, the call it the storylines already need to be known by a producer, and that producer is guiding interactions, and he guides them faster if they have shorter time, because you can't get paid overtime, so they have to fight before 5 o'clock.
No, we definitely get paid overtime, and it's not 5 o'clock. It's, you know, we're on 10 or 12-hour day rates before we hit overtime. But, you know, just to understand the structure, there's, you know, so in a particular show, there'll be a showrunner, and that's the person that has the big bird's eye view of what's happening. And then there may or may not be a supervising producer. They may be the same person or two separate people. Then you've got your producers, then field producers, which are like their assistants, and then everybody else. So it's almost like a game of telephone. Have you ever played that, or the rumor game, where you whisper, and then by the time it gets around the room, what originally got said is not what the last guy says. Fanboys, you look a little, you know what I'm talking about?
Well, no, but I understand.
Okay. So, you know, now it comes to, yes, I have the answer to the question from a minute ago. What has changed and disillusioned somewhat is that there's a large segment of these mid-level producers that are fear-based. So instead of making decisions that would put maybe their careers or their job at the moment at risk because they feel strongly about, I'm not wasting my time with that, I'll go here. We're going to go this way because I feel strongly. We do this. They do fear-based, and then so they get scattered and everything gets diluted because no full energy goes to one single direction. You know, one of the things for 15 years now, the thing that shuts me up the most, because I love collaboration. It's probably the number one thing about my job that carries over in my life and my friendships and my family, is collaborating about whatever it is, in a meal where we're going to have a few beers. Let's collaborate and enjoy ourselves while we're doing it. So nothing destroys my collaboration and my ability to contribute more than this answer to me saying, you know, because I'm a really great resource, and I'll be working with people that maybe have 3-5 years experience, and I've been at it for 28 years. So I might see something coming around the bend that they don't quite anticipate, or see an opportunity to do something to raise up production value. And I'll say, hey, why don't we consider doing this? And the fear-based answer is, we'll do it both ways. So, why would I want to double my workload? So it can be very frustrating. I would say it's more frustrating than it is what's rewarding at this point.
Wow. Because you have such a clear idea of how it could be, and you're basically living with the reality, which is we got to do it cheap, quick, and in the can.
Right. What is that? Fast, cheap, and good, and you only get two choices.
Yeah.
You can have it fast and cheap, but it won't be good. You can have it fast and good, won't be cheap.
Yeah.
Sounds like fast food.
Yeah. It does. I mean, in some degree, and I mean, if you think about the content, it's kind of fast food as well, because it's appealing to this lowest common denominator of humiliation and like just trying to say, you said looking at a train wreck because you don't want to, but you can't take your eyes off of it.
Why do you watch reality shows?
Well,
I don't really watch reality TV shows. No. I mean, Ronnie watched a reality TV show recently that was on, but she watched it. And I was like, on the side.
It's so easy to go when we went right down that rabbit hole of kind of the negative aspects of it, the things that are unappealing, the kind of like, ooh. The flip side of that, though, are just some wonderful experiences. I spent 6 months, 1 year for Discovery Health at Miami Children's Hospital. We did 27 one-hour stories of children born with craniofacial problems. So which usually also come along with developmental issues. So it isn't just a hair lip, it's a lot more. And so, I mean, daily, 5-6 days a week, we were in this hospital as a team, covering these stories and then going to their homes or going to their schools or the special need programming that they're doing. And it was so uplifting to do that kind of thing. Did another documentary called The New Face for Marley, which is this 9-year-old girl that had a 28-pound tumor on her face. And she was brought to Miami through the MacDonald's Foundation, and they removed it. And we covered it all. It was a 21-hour operation. It was.
And when you say you covered that, how do you film that? Like, how does that happen?
We just follow her and her family around through their experiences.
But you actually film the operation itself, or is that?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what happened, but I got in the early 2000s. I spent about a decade doing a lot of medical procedure type stuff, mostly for shows, but some for institutions, whether it's Johnson & Johnson and, new tools. I did a month-long epilepsy story where they put implants in the children's brains to discover which part was causing the epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they could find it, if it didn't have anything critical attached to it, they would cut it out. So they'd take off the top of the skull, go in and remove that portion of the brain, and stop the epilepsy.
And you would say, when you say film it, like, give me context here. It's not like you're sitting with a camera over the doctor. So how do you get?
Absolutely. Sitting with the camera,
really?
Everything's sterilized, everything's wrapped up. We're dressed just like medical personnel. I did this one story. We have a place called the Micro Hand Center.
Cameron, slow down for me a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm already felt excitement when you started talking about the kids. Yeah. So it feels like that is a little bit of a stretch between that and what you were talking about in the beginning. This actually does feel like reality TV.
Yes.
Like not so much tampered.
It's more it's true documentary style. It's really not seeing that fourth wall. We're so caught up as a viewer that we don't understand that we're seeing from a camera. We just feel like we're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt your excitement when you were talking from that point till now when I interrupted you.
Yeah.
I felt you like on fire almost.
The thing that I remember most about the brain operations was there was one patient we met where one of the early things for epilepsy was they would cut the brains in half where they connect the right brain from the left brain.
Yeah.
And so this woman, if I met you with this eye covered, I would look away, I'd look back at you, and I would recognize you. But if I met you like this and then came like this, I would see you and not recognize you because the brain isn't connecting. It was like such a weird thing.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So, anything medical felt right. But the micro hand center one, this one stands out to me because it was just so odd. This woman from the Bible Belt in the Carolina areas, she developed a really rare disease in her thumb, and they traced it back to pine cones used in arts and crafts in church. That's where she got it. But they amputated her thumb because of it, so it didn't take over everything. But then they took her big toe, trimmed it up, and made it a thumb. And that was such a bizarre moment for me.
And you'll be like in the operation where they're taking off that toe and putting it on as a thumb.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do you, because you're not a medical practitioner, how do you film that and not feel a bit almost wanting to get sick?
You know what? Oddly enough, this isn't just me. I hear this from a lot of operators and camera guys, is that when you're behind the camera, there's kind of a distance that's created.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I wouldn't want to turn the corner and see that, just normal, you're just kind of prepped and you're there.
So you're kind of saying filming it isn't all that different than watching it on TV for you?
Yeah, for me.
Okay.
But the Da Vinci tool.
Wouldn't you get a bit on TV?
I would get a bit on TV for sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I saw that.
You never know. I'm terrified of heights, but I can watch an operation. Everybody has their strong points and weak points, I think.
You had you once also told me about covering the Parkland shootings.
Yes, it was very difficult to decide to do that early on.
Parkland,
slow down.
Just Parkland shooting, just for Bambos' context. Can you share a little bit about that?
Any Dutch person that might not know.
Yeah.
In 2018, on Valentine's Day, a troubled student, entered his high school with weapons and killed, I think, 27 kids. I'm not sure. It was just another example of gun violence in the U.S. At schools, and so I immediately. It's like, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't want to do that. And a lot of people were on the same page that we were, and I don't do a lot of news anyway, but when something really big explosions, you can't get enough camera guys. So I end up getting called. And I say, I'm not doing that. And then MSNBC did a 1-hour documentary where I got asked to be a part of it. And I was like, sure, I'll do that. So we spent about 3 hours with each of these kids, with a group of kids that really stood out after the fact and protested and very vocal in the media. And they were part of this, and they were survivors. And that was thoughtful enough for me to participate in it and not feel like I was adding to the bleeds it leads kind of element that a lot of news things have here in the States.
Yeah. What would be the worst thing you've ever had to film?
Under what context, Andy?
He gets to decide.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the most uncomfortable. Wow, God, that's a tough one. there's a lot of worsts, and it's hard for me to pick one out and then not have it either me sounding like a jerk or, throwing a type of situation, throwing someone under the bus, so to speak, whether that's a culture, a group, or,
Yeah.
But what I do find distasteful is being forced to remain neutral in uncomfortable situations. And, and that can take a lot of different forms. So I don't mind a certain discourse or debate. I'm open, I'll talk. But what I don't want to do is be coerced or put into a situation that.
Interesting.
And I guess an example would be like this. If I'm working with someone because they're being filmed and, I've got to be with them for 3 days for 12 hours a day. And if they talk to me like this, so I may not agree with their politics or their viewpoints or anything about them. But, there's ways for a very objectionable, ugly person to say things. Like, for instance, someone I don't like could grab my attention by saying, I think Spanish people smell. What do you think?
Yeah.
One, that's not a conversation I would start. But then the truly objectionable, vulgar person will approach it like this. Spanish people smell, don't they? It's like, where does that leave me? Now I've got to defend myself. I've got to defend Spanish people. I've got to, there's no. So both of those situations are uncomfortable, but at least I can survive a little bit intact with the first example. The second one, I just want to pack up and leave, which I've only done 3 times in 20 plus years.
I was thinking more about not the situations you're in, but the actual things you were filming. So, like, what's the worst thing you had to film? That more in that direction as opposed to the situations you were in.
He did have context, Bambas.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, my mistake.
That's right.
I assumed that context was already clear.
Man,
we're putting poor Cameron in his head.
No, I know. I saw this. So I wanted to do something right now, actually. So this was an interesting test. Okay. So I noticed that I keep asking questions because I'm curious about what the trouble is. And I notice when Bambos asks you the questions, he's pushing you to the things that actually motivate and get you excited. And I see whenever you go there, you go to the stories and it gets really flowery and really interesting and really nice. So I was curious because now I was asking the questions like, yeah, he goes back into his head. He's totally not wanting to like answer the question in a way that sort of throws anyone under the bus or like does anything.
It's not an avoidance, Andy. It's truly like I'm being bombarded with my thoughts.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, it's akin to being like, which is your favorite son? Like, how do I answer that? Like,
yeah.
Cameron, so you were sharing, if you don't mind,
go, please.
You were sharing earlier, like some people make fear-based decisions, right?
Yeah. Has
this been something that you've been experienced yourself that you've done? Have you ever been fired from a situation? Where is your boundaries there?
I've never been fired, but I do notice that I had a long history of replacing the fired guy. So that's happened where I'm brought in midstream. It's because they let somebody go. I've never let go. And I think the one show that I quit was a Ramsey show, Top Chef.
Okay.
It was it just was not a good fit for me.
Yeah.
Isn't that in England?
Yeah, they got the American version. They've got, I don't even know if they're doing it anymore, but yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
But did you ever make decisions based on fear? How did you navigate that? Because I can imagine if you're working with people who are fast foodish, and what I hear from you, you're all about quality and craftsmanship. Like, where do you meet that space?
I typically, one of the very taxing elements in my industry, and probably everybody's, is second guessing. So I try not to do that to people. I want to give the benefit of the doubt. So when I am experiencing what I might consider or interpret as fear-based direction, I just do it.
So you
Because
assume the best.
I'm assuming the best. And I got to tell you, there's nothing worse than being second guessed when you're trying to compress so much work in a small amount of time. So, if I ask a production assistant, hey, bring that around the side of the house and hold it there. Well, why do you want me to do that? I thought you wanted it up there, blah, blah, blah. So if I have to stop and explain everything that I need or want every single time I ask for it, the day's going to implode. So just do what I'm asking right now. Forget everything else. And that's a hard concept for some people. I don't think they ever get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I equate it to, and this might seem a little off center, maybe bizarre, but there are some people in the world that I'll meet, and I know by the way they act and the way they talk to people that they've never been punched in the face. Getting punched in the face kind of gives you an experience that you kind of carry with you your whole life.
Uh-huh.
And if you've managed to avoid that, it means you've been getting away with quite a bit. And then if you start to feel entitled with that behavior, you just become a complete douche. Forgive the word.
Have you ever been punched in the face, Andy?
No, never.
Case in point. I see it.
Of course, I see it as well.
So yeah, I don't know what relevance that has, but yeah.
Cameron, what is an area in your work, your line of work, that we haven't covered but really excites you?
Oh, my favorite job I ever had. I miss it to this day. I pray it will come back. Which for about 6 years, I worked on a show called Court TV, which they would do capital murder cases, and we would spend weeks or months in the courtroom every day. And then typically my job was I would be in a room attached to the courtroom while the other camera and audio guys were in the courtroom. And I would be running a robotic camera and then doing the switching feed that would then go out live and be recorded. So the thing about that show that was so exciting outside of the law process and just understanding everybody's role there, including the juries and that civic duty, which I'm really, really fond of, is that we saw everything. So the bloody knife that got thrown out, the confession that got thrown out, like we knew it was there. So now suddenly they're bringing the jury back in, but they can't show them any of this really relevant evidence. And they always got it right.
Oh, is that right?
They always got it right. And that way, I got to tell you, horrifically.
So this is documentary, right? Again.
Yeah, this would be considered documentary news style stuff. But the horrific part of that would be crime scene photos. And those were I've had nightmares and nausea, like just because it's real stories, and real people, and you're meeting the families because you're doing interviews with them as well. You know, and you're watching their reactions in court. And and they say a parent should never lose a child. It's like,
Cameron, it sounds to me like you're in the wrong profession. Like it really sounds like your excitement and your balls are in the documentary world.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah, probably. That's probably where I found my most enjoyment. But, in order to really secure that, I get to create my opportunity to be a director, of photographer, or a cameraman. That's my responsibility. My choices about the market I live in, about the relationships I cultivate, like that's more of a tandem relationship where I don't really get to pick and choose what I do. And early on, I thought what I wanted to do was the camera department. That's what I thought. And so by the time MTV came around, you know, a lot of those kinds of things, I had arrived in my mind. Uh, so putting myself strictly documentary guy, while it wouldn't be impossible, it would take years to kind of build up that platform with reliable people that keep their jobs as well. Because we're all freelancers, or permalance, and we all move around and shift places. And sometimes I'm lucky. So a guy that went from MTV, then went to PBS or NBC, and he keeps the Rolodex, and you get the call. Hey, let's do this. You want to do this? You in, you out. So it's harder.
But what I'm hearing from you, which is really nicely put, is that I hear that for you, there's more intellectual challenge in the actual content that gets you excited or not. Meaning when you talk about the documentaries, or when you talk about the operations, or when you talk about going to children's hospitals, there's an aspect of that where it sounds like you're learning, even though you're filming. It's like that seems to be an aspect that drives you to be more excited about it.
I would say that there's a point at most beginnings, relationships or whatever, where there's a brain tickle that just kind of, it's like the honeymoon feeling, like I love it. And so, like, I love doing teasers, which are like basically a 3-minute example of what a show could be.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Here's a character. Here's their situation. You think that's a show? Those are fun. Pilots are exciting. Even though they're a lot of work, you're in a constant create mode. It's just a good idea. Let's do that. How about we do that? Yeah. And you just feel these happy accidents, these planned wins, things that go right the way you started, which is not a lot. But once the footprint is built, I don't want to spend 3 months, 5 days a week doing this for 12 hours, because it's suddenly this, I swear to God, I get home from work sometimes and I feel like I helped my friend move. That's it. Because, I've unloaded and loaded my truck 3 times, 4 times.
Yeah.
It's nothing but boxes and cases, unpacking, packing, there's a saying, it's not the take that takes the time to take the take. It's the time between the take that takes the time to take the take.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's a lot of preparing hours for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Hours.
Yeah.
So, and then, it takes a certain kind of, for grip and gaffer lighting guys, on one hand, they are doing the heaviest back-breaking work, but their brains are freed up because all they're doing is lighting the room.
Yeah.
Daytime, nighttime, is it morning? Is it lunchtime? What do you want? So in order to collaborate and be part of a team in my job, you're constantly trying to keep up with outdated information. So what was real 5 minutes ago completely changed now, but nobody bothered to tell you.
Yeah.
So, I put in a certain amount of energy and momentum in a direction that is no longer relevant. And it's like pushing a wheeled heavy cart on a carpet. Like, the hardest part is getting it going. The last thing you want to do is have to stop for somebody coming the other way, because you're like,
Cameron, 29 years ago,
where did you? Go ahead.
29 years ago, where did you see yourself being in your life? Did you think was this where you kind of saw yourself?
It was very short-sighted, I think. I just wanted to get a camera in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
What I knew I didn't want, I knew I didn't want the film set. I didn't want to be on a movie. I didn't want to go and be part of this 3-6 month thing, which really, the people I do know like that are like 2 times married. They're it's just very, very hard to have what I considered the life I wanted: pets, plants, cooking. These are all things that bring me personal joy. And you don't get any of that except in big pockets. In between films, you might be off for a month or 2. But then you're just, it's nothing but work, hit the bed, work, hit the bed, work, hit the bed.
Wow.
Okay.
And even some of the long-term reality shows that I would run on, it was a lot easier to be out of town and in a hotel and function mentally on those kinds of shows than it was to be at home working in the same city, because the brain shift, spending 14 hours and then some drive time only to come home and all you want to do is eat and go to bed, but you got your family with you. You've got responsibilities. The toilet still leaks. All these things, and it's just so taxing to like split the brain like that. So, and it's, I remember at one point, in our house, we've got our roles, and they do ebb and flow and they change. And, time management and schedule wise, it's easier for me to cook and meal plan. So that includes making lunch for Shauna, my wife. And whether I do that the night before or before I leave doing my thing, I just get it out. Well, sometimes, I'll get sucked into like a week-long something that it all just falls on the wayside. Yeah. And at one point a few years ago, Shauna was, pulled me aside and said, look, I understand what you're doing, but you got to let me know. Give me a heads up. Don't just wake up and I've got my thing going and suddenly you're just not there mentally and or physically. It's okay to be that way, but at least let's just have a little precursor. Like going into a tough week, I think you're going to have to fend for yourself. Whatever it is, versus, really just, I got into quite a few years of just, when it was time, I clicked and that was it.
Yeah.
Which wasn't very healthy for the relationship.
So what's next, Cameron?
So, I had shoulder surgery for a rotator cuff in December.
That's not what I was asking. What's your next steps?
I don't know, and I've had a lot of time to think about it.
Because of your operation?
Because of my shoulder, and then what am I going to get back to? How am I going to moderate this? So, our current plan is to sell our wonderful beach house in Hollywood, Florida, and move somewhere else.
Andy, he has a beach house.
I know.
Sounds very luxurious.
It's nice.
North. The nickname for where we live is Holly Weird.
And it is pretty weird.
You've been there?
Yeah, a lot. I spent quite a bit of
my
time.
neighborhood's a great little bubble, but when we get on US 1, driving out of the neighborhood to get to a main artery, if you squint like this, it looks like you're watching an episode of The Walking
Dead. Yep. You get a zombie feel. It has a zombie feel to it. Like you kind of walk and say, well, this is a future zombie film set.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the other saying, there's one in Florida, using your turn signal is a sign of weakness. It's a driving joke.
Yeah.
I love it. So you actually do it intentionally, I guess.
No, I like a good indicator light.
Yeah. I always follow, I mean, you live in actually I would call it the dregs of Florida, but I actually love seeing Florida Man, which is basically a website and a kind of a thing that everything bad that happens in the US, kind of 9 times out of 10 it comes in Florida. So
it's tied to Florida somehow.
Yeah, it's somehow tied to Florida. So all the articles in the newspaper say Florida man does Florida man kills, Florida man this.
Well, that's racist.
It would be repetitive. Florida man.
I'm glimpsing stories that I'm just not going to go down that track.
No.
Yet. No.
I'm
just trying to think of an example that anybody can go and say, oh, this is the person that Cameron's talking about.
You don't want to expose anybody.
Yeah, anybody you could just I'd rather not.
Agreed. No, God forbid that we would disrupt your channel of business because of this show.
No, it's not that. It's just that I don't know this particular person I was thinking about. I just know of him.
Oh yeah,
and he's readily available. But he's a perfect example of what I hate about the industry. So, what I'll do is I'll send you that message later, and if you want to look at this person, just for a form of education, you can.
Yes,
I'm good.
Yeah.
Ah,
But
and
I
you're
think like anybody, it's just a job.
mm,
It's physical and mental. And there are good days and bad days.
sure. I was wondering, out of all the projects, you may have already answered it, but I'd love to. So, if you said that was my favorite project of all time, which one would that have been?
Court TV,
Or TV?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
hands down.
That's nice.
I love the team members. I love just everything about it. And the access.
And I go back to Bambos's question, your future. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
I have a pool.
Pool. Nice.
I have weatherproof windows,
Uh-huh.
double paned,
Okay.
and I'm living near the water.
I love it.
I mean, that's about.
Hey, that's how vision starts,
Yep.
That's beautiful. Well, I think I'm good for today. I don't know if you have any more questions of Cam.
No.
No, I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. I mean,
I thought it was great.
Like for me, it was like now I'm gonna Google reality TV just to get 2 minutes of it, and then I'll throw up and turn it off.
the funny thing is if you will find something you like.
Because
if you
people
look.
because people want to see people suffering.
Well, it's not only suffering, but there's there's two shows train wreck shows that we are watching on occasion here at home. One is 90 Day Fiance, and the other one is Love After Lockup. So look those up, and it's just like a guilty pleasure, like a crappy candy bar you keep eating.
By the way, just out of curiosity, have you ever filmed the Cops show?
No, I don't like Mortal Danger. And I always felt like,
Were you asked to
to
film one?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of my buddies did it, and I was like, no.
Bad boys. What you
Yeah.
gonna do?
What you
It's
gonna
still
do?
going on.
Is
In
it still
fact,
going on?
I do know one of the original cameramen for that show is one of my mentors.
Wow.
And he's
His
still
company
doing
hires
it?
me a lot. No, but he's still working, just not on Cops.
I mean, he would have to have running legs because they did chase people with the camera as well, right? I mean, that wouldn't be easy work. I can't imagine that being an easy job.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Well, so nice to finally meet you outside of the comments, Cameron.
Yes. Thank you for commenting. It's been much appreciated.
We're gonna visit you at your beach house at some point when
Yes.
Come
the
anytime, you guys. Bring them along, Andy.
Yes, I certainly will.
No comments or questions from the peanut gallery?
No, we didn't. We had some comments because they come in different locations. Anyone that's watching on my private should switch over to watching it on A Wonderful Chaos. Basically, we had someone say, get these idiots off TV. Basically, I had one comment like that to the reality TV people.
Yeah.
Ronnie is also saying hello, so she's watching
Ronnie.
downstairs.
Hey, Shauna.
Sean is also there, I'm sure.
She might be.
She might.
Anyway,
and we have the whole
thank
Neary
you.
family. We're sure that the Neary family is going to watch this. So is there anything you want to say to the Neary family before you go?
Love you guys.
Love it.
we're gonna make him even more famous now.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
See you
Great to
guys.
be. It was great to be with you. We'll talk. Yeah.
Love you, buddy.
Ciao. Love you, man.
Ciao.
Bye. So that was Cameron.
That was Cameron.
Isn't it great to sort of have these people that we actually get to spend time with through our comments, and now we actually get to see them firsthand?
Yeah, and get to know their world a little bit.
Yeah. Fascinating. If you think of different lives, the kind of life when you wake up in the morning, someone calls you and says, I got this gig of filming whatever it is you're filming. And the fact it can be so varied, he goes from filming, a reality show of people dating to kids that have just had to suffer through a school shooting. I mean, his life has got to be a mix of so much different emotions. Yeah.
And I can imagine you also shut a part of yourself down at some point if you're constantly exposed to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we thank Cameron for being with us. And we have some shows tomorrow. We have a cool show tomorrow. We have Laser 3.14.
Show number 39.
5 p.m. Laser is famous in Amsterdam because he's tagged every building. And I called him a prophet by accident. And he said, Andy, I'm not a prophet. I'm a street artist. I'm a poetic artist. So he's a poetic artist, and he's going to be on tomorrow and on
and only audio. He won't be.
Yeah, we won't
visible.
be seeing him because he's not known visually, or not by people. Don't know what he looks like. Hundreds of Divorces is on Thursday. We've got someone from my old high school, and she's been through 300 divorce cases, and I'm just so fascinated to hear what that life looks like. That's 6 p.m. on Thursday, and on Friday we got David Wilson Johnson. He's the world's most sought after baritone. He's been singing on the stages, the opera stages throughout the world, and he's created a lot of albums. So it'll be fun to have all these people this week. Yeah. And we look forward to seeing you next time on A Wonderful Chaos.
Adios.
Bye.